This is Gemara and Yoma Daf Pei Gimel of learning Shvius Chutz for Shlimber for men of Mega Chaim and Sarsham Stephen Rezel Sar Bas Knendel Ite Basim Bas Chaisei Yisol Mamindel the President Chevrolet Shom Mas Nomi Veshaving Shirachan Shmom Tila Turim Ben Chan Rezel Mchai Basim the Bracha was for Musa Din Ilam Veshen Mindel Sviv Mefei Gunun Vechilitzun Tzela Huva Machamendel Rivka Bas Veshav and Aftili Shim Mechlester B'Sei Shachali Yisrael as well as Choshedah Fratlei Basita and Yisrael Chaim Ben Devaira. We pick it up in the tab of Pei Gimel Amid Aleph. We finished yesterday discussing the woman who is pregnant and had cravings in Yom Kippur. They whispered in her ear on whether she calmed down or not. Today we pick up from a similar place. Says the Gemara on the tab of Pei Gimel Amid Aleph. 2 lines down, we feed a chayla based on the bikiyim, based on their doctors. If they say that this person needs to eat and he's in sakanas nafashais, we feed him. If not, not. Says the Gemara, let's learn the rules. The unique, difficult, and perhaps intricate rules of when we let someone eat in Yom Kippur or not. And maybe at the end we'll try to point out the few points that come out of Lach L'Maisa. Omar Rav Yanai says, Rav Yanai, 3 lines down, Begim Lam and Aleph. If the sick person, of course, we're talking about a chayla mesukon, a life and death case. If the person says, I need to eat, the doctor says, no, you don't. You're perfectly fine. We listen to the chayla, we let him eat. My time, what's the reason? Because the person knows himself, the heart knows the bitterness of its soul, and the person knows himself if he needs to eat. And therefore, we let him eat. Says the Gemara Pshita, of course we're going to let him eat. It's like the vashais. Safek lekula. We all know that. Very simple. This has been very famous the last year or two, the year of Corona. We've heard so many times that it's not a chumrah. It's a chumrah in sakanas nafash. It's a chumrah in life, which is, of course, the kula that we let you eat, that we let you do whatever you need to do. So says the Gemara Pshita, Safek sakanas nafash is like kula. Of course we let him eat. Answers the Gemara, I would have thought, the doctor knows more. What do you know? You don't know anything. You're sick. You say, I need to eat, but you don't know what you're talking about. Kamash Malon, and now it's a massive chiddush. Even against the doctors, against the experts, if you say you need to eat, we let him eat, which is a rule which will and forever will stand, that whenever there's a chayla, the chayla knows himself. We'll see a bit more of the applications, ramifications of this rule, but this will always be in. I'm sure there were people that last Yom Kippur, they had Corona, they didn't, and they were told, at the end of the day, if you feel like you need, you're allowed to eat. You're allowed to eat, because why? V'chai bahem. What's most important is we want to keep the Jewish soul alive, and of course that becomes the biggest mitzvah. But again, so rule number 1 is leiv yedei amaras nafshay, the chayla knows himself. Says the Gemara number 2, continues Rav Yanai, what about the flip side? The chayla says, I don't need to eat. The doctor says, yes, you do. Says the Gemara again, Shaimin l'Raife. Again, we're makel. We listen to the doctor, my time. Maybe he's delirious. He's sick. He doesn't know what's going on. He's saying, no, I don't need to eat. Yes, you do. And we make him eat. Says the Gemara, Tanan, we learned in a Mishnah. We said in our Mishnah, we feed a chayla based on the doctors, the experts. I'll be bekiyim in, I'll be atzmai loy, I'll be bekiyim in, I'll be baki echaloi. Double question. Rav Yanai just taught us 2 dinim. Number 1, he said, we listened to the chayla. Number 2, we said, listen to 1 doctor. But our Mishnah seems to say not that way. Our Mishnah seems to say, number 1, that we need 2 people. Number 2 is we don't listen to him, we listen to the doctor. Answers the Gemara, the case over here is referring to in our Mishnah, the Amar loy tzarechna. The case of the Mishnah is where the chayla says, I do not need to eat. And that's when the Mishnah said that in order to tell him, when he says, I don't need to eat, and we need to say that you yes need to eat, that's when we need to have a baki, and that's when we need to even have 2 people saying that. Says the Gemara, furthering that question, I'll be baki. What's the reason why you telling me we need 2? Let's feed him based on the baki. Answers the Gemara, the case is the Ika Achrina Behadei. Now it's getting a little bit complicated. The case over here is the Omar Loitzarech. So again, the Chayla himself, the sick person, says, I don't need to eat. There is a doctor that says also he doesn't need to eat. So there's 2 on that side. And now what do we need to counterbalance that to win? We're going to need 2 Bakiyim saying he yes needs to eat. But if it would only be 1 doctor, then it wouldn't be. For what reason? Because you have the Chayla and the Baki on the same side. Says the Gemara 1 second. second. But if the case is that we need to have two people, that's obvious. Why? Safek nefashis. It's a safek, v'safek nefashis la'akel. Answers the same question we had before. Answers the Gemara, there were two other people with him. Say you have the chayla plus 2 versus 2. Says the Gemara, Damri loy tzarich. Va'af al gav. And now what's the chiddush? It's 3 versus 2. Va'af al gav damar av safra trey kamei omega trey. We know in Bezdin, whenever we have 2 edim, 2 have the status of 1,000,000. There's no such thing, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 2 is golden, honey mili, but it's not true. That's only linyan edus. With regard to testimony, then it's true that 2 are golden and it doesn't make difference 2, 3, 4, 5, 25. When it comes to evaluating something, we care. It makes a lot of difference how many people they are. We go by the amount of people. However, that's only by money. But in our case, what are we referring to? We're referring to Sakanas Nafashais, and therefore it's going to win even if you don't have the majority opinion. And that's the reason why we're saying that if you have the Chayla plus 2 versus 2 others, those 2 others will win. So it's almost like a double Chiddush. We don't say Trey Kameya. We say we go Basar Deya is how many people, but we don't say that it goes strictly versus numbers, 3 versus 2, then the 3 will win, because something nefashais lekula. Says the Gemara, 1 second, what did the Seifa say in Shambikim? If there are no experts, we feed him based on that which he says himself. Excuse me. Excuse me. It sounds like that in the Reisha. What's the case? The case, it sounds like in the Reisha is that there were experts saying that he needs to eat. I'm sorry, the case is where the Chayla himself says he needs to eat. Again, we want to keep the Mishnah parallel. And we just explained that the Seifa of the Mishnah is that we're Machinoi Sayal Piatzmai. So Bechal the Reisha Damar Tzarech, it's the same case where he himself says he needs to eat. Says the Gemara, no. Let's reinterpret the Mishnah. What's the case of the Mishnah? The case of the Mishnah is when he says he does not eat it. Lo tzarechani. Aval omar tzarechani in shabikim trei elochad. The omar lo tzarech machlinos al pi atzmai. Says the Gemara, this is what's going on. One more time. But when do we say that we need to go after the experts, after the Baki? That's the Amr Light Tzarechani. That's where he himself says, I do not need to eat. That's when we go after the Baki, we go after the doctors, the experts. Where he says, where the Chayla himself says, I need to eat, Ein Sham Bikiyim Trey. If there are not 2 experts, then Elachad Amr Light Tzarech Machinoi Sayal Pi Atzmai. Which of course the obvious implication is, but if there would be 2, then those 2 would trump even himself. Says the Gemara, Marbar Avashi, Amar Kolecha Damar Tzarech Ani Afilu Ikameyo Damri Lo Tzarech L'Deisha Minon. Marbar Avashi argues, Marbar Avashi says, sort of what we would have thought from based on the first part of the Gemara, Shenemar, Leiv Yodea Maras Nafsho, a person knows himself, even against 100 doctors. You have the entire medical team at Columbia telling you don't need to eat, you're perfectly fine. And the Chayla says, I need to eat, I'm telling you I'm gonna die. We feed him. Says Rav Ashi, Safek Nafash is the hakal how important we value life. Tanan, we learned in the Mishnah 1 second. The main Shamikim, if there are no Bikim, then we list himself. Time to like a Bikim, you can Bikim Loi. The obvious implication of our Mishnah is that if there are Bikim, that's one, but if there are Bikim, then we're not going to listen to him. Says the Gemara, that's only the case where he doesn't eat. That's when he says, I don't need to eat. That's when we go after the Bikim, after the experts. Marbar Rashi holds when he's talking about he needs to eat, it's irrelevant how many Bikim there are. We listen to him because a person knows himself, and it comes out absolutely fascinating. It comes out that the original rule that we learned, at least according to Rav Ashi, Marbar Rav Ashi, is going to win even against all the doctors, 1, 2, 100. It doesn't make a difference. Says the Mishnah. And now we're going to get involved in different diseases and different remedies, different times where we're going to allow someone to eat things in order to save his life. So says the Mishnah, someone who has bulmus, a type of disease that grabs hold of him, afilu dvarim tameim, even things which are not kosher. Until his eyes become clear, that's a sign that its disease bulmus has left him. For rabid dog bites him, we do not feed him from the liver of the rabid dog, even though obviously they thought that at some level was a remedy, but this is where we see that a non-proven remedy we will not let work even in the face of sakanas nefashis. Ramasi ben Charash, Ramasi ben Charash says you are allowed. Ramasi ben Charash, if he's chayish begrana, he has a throat ailment, we put medicine in his mouth. The Shabbos on Shabbos. Of course, the Gemara is going to explain all these cases. And they shoot suffix nefashis and suffix kind of nefashis. Unfortunately, this is time appropriate for not good reasons. But if God forbid, if a tower, a building falls on a person, Safiku, Sham, Safik Inoy Sham, you're not sure if the someone buried over there, Safik Chai, Safik Mace. You're not sure if the people there are dead or not, Safik Kusi, Safik Yisrael, you don't even know if they're Yidin. Mefachin Allah is like we unearth him, we use even the araisas to move away the rubble. Mato chai mefach, and we find him alive. Then we clear away the rubble to get him out of there. If we find the dead body is muksa. So then we can't do it. The whole heter over here to be over the araisas is potentially to save a life. If there's no life, then we revert back to regular dinya of Shabbos, and then we would not be able to do anything to move the dead body. Tanu Rabbanon says the Gemara. Now we're going to start quite a lengthy Agadah, which is going to take us the rest of today and tomorrow. Tanu Rabbanon. How do we know that when we said that by this person who has bulmus, we help him until his vision is restored? How do we know? Says the Gemara, when he can differentiate between good and bad food, when his taste comes back, that is the way of knowing that his vision comes back. Amar Abaye, says Abaye, this means that he can do it through tasting. Bein tov l'ra is via tasting. Tanu Rabbanan, and unfortunately we all know how taste sometimes is connected to the strangest of things. As of late, no one has this question, what does that have to do with vision? Just like no one had a question, what does taste have to do with all the other things that we lost taste for? Tanu Rabbanan says the Gemara, Mishach Zay Bulmis. If someone has this disease that grabbed hold of him, kal. Very important, we feed him what's first less usr before something more usr. And this is of course a rule. And all of Pikuach Nefesh, all times they were trying to save a life. This refers to Shabbos, Yom Kippur, and everything. Hakal kal koidim. You always try to do the least amount of malacha, the least amount of aveira. If you have a choice being over Derabanan and Deraisa, you first do the Derabanan, and then Deraisa, as we're about to see over here. Says the Gemara, Tevelun Avela. If you have a choice of feeding the person Tevelun Avela, Mechinos and Avela, which is a lower level of aveira. The Tevelu Shvius, Tevelu Truma, Tanayi, that's Machlokes Tanayim. The Tani we learned in a Braisa, Mechinos say Tevel, Vin Mechinos say Truma, Bentema Imer Truma V'loi Tevel. A Machlokes, which one takes precedence? Amar Rabba. If it's possible for a chulin and he doesn't have to take off the appropriate chumas and maestris, which is forbidden on Shabbos and din derabanan, everyone agrees. Misaknina, you fix the food and you let him eat it. Ki pligi, what's the machlekes? But the machlekes over here is when it's not possible. B'doloi efsher b'chulin, where it's not possible to feed him with chulin. So mar savar tevel chamer, or mar savar chuma chamura. And that is the machlokes, whether you should eat chevel or truma. Mar savar tevel chamer explains the Gemara. Avol truma chaz l'kayin. Truma at some level is fit for someone. So it's always, we have this balance. Is it something that's chazi at some level or something that could potentially be fixed? Says the Gemara, that's going to be the machlokes. But says the Gemara, what did we just say a moment ago? We said both the Tanakama and Betima agree that if we have tevel or chuma, what should we do? We should fix the food and give it to him. Efshar b'chulim shita. Says the Gemara, I don't understand. If you could feed him chulin, of course you do that. Chulin is mutter gamer. Explains the Gemara, what's the case? B'Shabbos, like we explained when we read the Gemara. B'Shabbos Nami, says the Gemara, but in Shabbos also b'shita. It's also obvious why. Told them in the Rabbananu. It's only din derabanan to move something that's muksa. Hachamayaskina explains the Gemara, it's in a flower pot without a hole. derabanan, and therefore it has a din derabanan to move it. And Rabbah is teaching me that both the Tanakama and Bentima are going to agree that we rather you over the din derabanan of taking off the chumas and maestris than to eat the tevel grown in these otzits she'enai nakov. Mar savar tevel chamur, mar savar chuma chamura. Says the Gemara, lema tanai. Let's say this machlekes ben tema and tanakama. Let's say that this is indeed a machlekes tanai. The Tanya learned in a brayse. Mir shanash chanachash. A snake bites someone. What do? We call a doctor. Mimakom lemakim. We call the doctor from place to place. And as well, what else are we going to do for this person to save his life? To get rid of this snake bite, we tear open a chicken for him, and that's one of the remedies. You put the chicken on the wound. The guys in life is accretion. What else do? We cut leeks from him straight out of the ground, even though of course you can't cut things from the ground on Shabbos. And we feed it to him. And Rabbi says you don't have to take off meiser, even though you just cut off fresh produce. Fresh produce, of course, you generally have to take off meiser. Says Rabbi, in this case, we're not concerned. We feed it to him right away. Don't waste any time. Rav Shimon, you take off the appropriate meisers. So says the Gemara, this is the machlekes ben tema and tanakama. Name of Rav Lazar, Rav Shimoni, Rabbi. So let's say that what Rabbi said before is like Rav Lazar, Rav Shimon, and not like Rabbi. Says the Gemara, no, if you tema Rabbi, can become a Rabbi awesome, Elinian Meiser Yarok. That was by vegetables, the Rabbanon. Avol Meiser dog in the tevel, Daraiso, Afilu Rabbi Maida. Because we have a shiloh of a daraisa, a concept that we've seen many times, then we have something that could grow into a daraisa, no pun intended. We have something that could be, it's in the parsha, could be a daraisa. That's more chamer. And explains the Gemara, we're afraid you could come to eat from a flower pot with a hole, which has a din of being attached to the ground. And then we'll have a real din daraisa, so it's in the parsha of a daraisa, and therefore we have to deal with it more chamer. Says the Gemara, Tanura Abanan, about 8 lines from the medium, from the wide lines. Misha Achsle Bomis, someone who has this disease, Bomis, who grabbed hold of him, what do? We feed him, number 1, honey, V'chol mini matika, wonderful, all different candies and sweets. It makes the person's eyesight, well, I don't know if this goes with conventional science over here, but sweets and candies makes a person's eyesight go well. We don't have a raya, we have an allusion to the matter. What does the pasuk says? Runa, see now, ki oru einai, my eyes have lit up. Ta'amti ma'at devash hazeh. When I tasted a little bit of this honey, that this was Shaul HaMelech over there, that he said this honey opened up his eyes. A raya. I don't know if it's the same thing as candies over here, but it's a raya that a little bit of honey, a little bit of candy opens up the eyes, and that's how one who, God forbid, has a disease called pomis should overload with honey and sweets. What does it mean? It's not a raya. Says the Gemara. It sounds like it's a gavaldik raya. It's a straight up pasuk. The awesome not pomis, because over there it wasn't pomis. It was showing that it is a good thing to have the candies or have the sweet honey, but it didn't necessarily show as a proof to the remedy for this disease of bulmus. Says the Gemara on the last narrow line, Amar Abaye lo shenanu ela la'achar achila. Says Abaye, be very careful. Only have candy. Dessert only comes after the meal. Aval kaidem achila, but before the meal, megarer garir. It could be harmful for you. It can mess up the system, makes you more hungry. So make sure only to have the candies when you finish the meal. The Chsev, as the pasuk says, v'yimatu ish mitzvah basadeh, and they found the Egyptian man in the field. They brought him to David. First they gave him bread. And they gave him to food. They gave him to drink. And after they gave him everything to eat and drink and the bread and whatnot, then they gave him a cake of pressed figs, and 2 classes of raisins. And he ate, and he was settled. This verse came back to me. The person was so hungry, he did not eat for 3 days and 3 nights. What do we see? They didn't immediately go and pump him up with sweets. Rather, they gave him food. And unfortunately, we know after the Holocaust, there were people that got killed from eating from the soldiers that gave them sweets and chocolate without putting any of the food in the system. It was absolutely dreadful. We see a pasuk by David HaMelech showing us otherwise. Says the Gemara, Amar Rav Nachman, Amar Shmuel, 3 lines down on Pegimlam and Beis. 3 lines into wide lines, excuse me. More remedies for this disease called bomis. We feed them the tail with honey, the tail of a sheep. You also feed him wheat flour, fine flour, excuse me, with honey. Even barley flour, again, everything with honey, because we need the sweet stuff. Says Rav Yechlan, one time I had this disease called bomis. And I went to the east side of the Taina because I knew that those were very, when the sun well, they made them very, very sweet. Rashi explains, and it was fulfilled by myself, that wisdom preserves the life, that because he knew which dates to go eat, it saved his life. The Tani Rav Yosef, as Rav Yosef taught, you want to taste a wonderful te'ena, a wonderful fig, the best tasting one, Yaflam is Zuracha. Go to the east of the fig tree. Remember the pasuk says, Shamesh, and from the delicacies of the sun, and the sun is on the east side, and that's going to make the fruit the best. Says the Gemara, another story, Rav Yosef, they were going the road, Achli Bolmis, the Rav Yehuda got sick with disease called bomis. He grabbed the shepherd and he grabbed his bread and he ate it. Of course, it sounds like a little bit like a Robin Hood story over here. He just was stealing his food. Apparently, it was for sakanas davashes. Like we said, you could transgress any aveira. Rav Yossi said he wasn't so happy, and he says, you took away food from the raya. When they came to the town, now the tables turned. Rav Yossi was one that was sick. And what happened? All the people in the city came out with honeys and sweets, and everyone gave Rav Yossi food. Rav Yehuda said to Rav Yossi, I took just the food from one shepherd. You took food from the entire city. And furthermore, another story with Bomis are made Rav Yehuda, Rav Yosef, they were traveling on the road. Says the Gemara, Rav Meir was very careful about names. He heard names and he would look into them, as we'll see in a moment, and he would read into the names of people. And Rav Yehuda and Rav Yosef were not as particular about names. They reached a certain inn. They asked them, they wanted to sleep there overnight. So they gave them a place to sleep. Again, Rameh, Rav Yehuda, and Rav Yossi. Amrulai, they asked the innkeeper, "My shemcha, what's your name?" Amrulu, Kider. My name is Kider. Interesting name. Amar. So Rameir said again. Rameir was one that's dayik b'shmei. He was very careful about names. Amar said, Rameir Shmami Adam Rashu. I know this person's a wicked person. Amar. Kidar tapucha is hema. The word kidar tapucha is hema. And the Rameir learned out that it shows that this person is a terrible person. What happened? Rav Yehuda Rav Yossi gave the innkeeper their wallets to hold on to for them. Rameir wasn't taking a chance. He didn't give the wallet. Rameir put his wallet on the grave of the innkeeper's father. Okay. The innkeeper went to sleep and he had a dream. And his father in the dream told him, take the wallet off my head. Tahu Gavra of that person, referring to himself. The innkeeper wakes up and he tells these three sages, Rameir, Rav Yehuda, and Rav Yossi, I had the most unique and interesting dream. Then my father told me to get this wallet off my head. Amrulei, they told the innkeeper, the dreams of Friday night, they have no substance. It's because you're so relaxed, you're such a big meal, your mind wanders, don't think about it. Azar Rameir, but Rameir is now all nervous. What does he do? Azar Rameir, he waits the entire day by the grave to make sure no one touches his wallet. I see him once it got dark, Motzei Shabbos, he took his wallet. Lamacha, the next day, Amrulei Havli Kisin. So Rav Yossi and Rav Yehuda went back to the innkeeper and said, give us back our wallets. Amrulei Ladam. I don't know what you're talking about. What wallet? Amrulei Rameir. Rameir said to Rav Yehuda and Rav Yossi, why didn't you look into his name? His name was Kider. You should have known he's a Rasha. Why did you give him your wallet? Amrulei, they said to Rameir, why didn't you tell us? Amrulei, so Rameir, I don't know for sure. I wasn't allowed to tell you. I had a chashash. I had a suspicion. So that was seemingly the end. They lost their wallets. What happened? So they went with the host, they went to the store. And what did they do? Rav Yehuda and Rav Yossi wanted to get their wallet back, so they gave him a lot to drink. And they saw that on his mustache he had some lentils. Oslu, they went. They went back to the inn. They went back to the innkeeper's wife, and they told the innkeeper's wife, give us a wallet. And how do they convince the innkeeper that their husband said? They say that, and we know what he ate for lunch. He had lentils on his mustache. And they went and they left with their wallet. The innkeeper came, and he killed his wife. So we learned in a Mishnah, a different story. That's this story. Because he didn't wash off his mustache, he eventually caused his wife to be killed. At the end of the story, Rav Yehuda and Rav Yossi as well would be medayik into names. When they reached that house, the Shama Bala, they reached a certain house whose the owner's name was Bala. They didn't enter into the house. Amri, they said, Shmami no Rashu, she's a Rasha Tachseva, Amr la Bala Ne'ufim. That the word Bala refers to Ne'ufim and adulteress. Now, it's a shayla whether we see these last few words. So Rav Yehuda and Rav Yossi learned their lesson. Let's start the next Gemara. Tomorrow's daf is also a long one. So we said in the next part of the Mishnah that if a rabid dog bites someone, you're not allowed to feed him the liver of that dog. There's 5 things to do about a rabid dog. There's 5 ways of knowing if the dog is rabid. His mouth is open, its saliva is dripping, his ears are downward, his tail is between its legs, and it walks on the side of the road. And some people say that it barks, but you don't hear the voice. These ways of knowing that the dog is rabid, the dog is very dangerous. Mimai have. Says the Gemara, where does the dog get this condition that it becomes rabid and it could kill people? You know where it comes from? It comes from women, sorceresses that play with the dog, and then the sorcery, the shade, the evil spirit goes into the dog. What's the evil spirit on the dog? What's the difference in these 2 opinions? Says the Gemara, moving over to tomorrow's Daf Pedalim and Aleph. Limikatle, bedavar and nizik, to kill it with the davar and nizik, to throw something far, not to get close because you don't want the dog, the spirit, to get on you. And says the Gemara, that's going to be the nafka mina. Tani kavase the shmol. Let's finish with this. We have a right the shmol. Because arganai say ela bedavar han nizrak. The only way to kill the dog is by throwing something at it. The Chayef Bey, actually, and we'll stop over here as we'll talk more about the rabid dog in Mir Tashem tomorrow.